This year I've had more drum bargains than I've ever had before, but perhaps the bundle that's taught me more about buying and selling drums online than any other is the job lot of stuff that I got with this Pearl Masters Studio. But before I play it, tell you how much I paid, how much I got, and show you all the things that I got with it, let's take a brief look into the history of the Pearl Masters range. The Pearl Masters range was first introduced in 1993, and it was offered in a variety of subsets depending on shell materials, finish, and hardware. From its launch up until the early 2000s, there was the MMX, which is a 4-ply maple with reinforcement rings, and supposedly it would give you a warm, resonant, recording-friendly sound. There was the MBX, which is a 4-ply birch with reinforcement rings, and that would give you a more studio-focused, brighter tone. Then later, there was the BSX, which was a 6-ply birch, which would supposedly give you more volume and more projection. And then there was the MCX, which was a 6-ply maple with stronger attack and apparently more durability, which sounds a bit strange to me. The kit I have here, which is a Pearl Masters Studio Birch, is from sometime between the early 2000s and probably the mid to late 2000s, definitely before 2010. And in the early 2000s, the Masters was still Pearl's flagship line, up until the reference kit was released in 2005.
Hi, I'm Steve Armstrong with Pearl. Today we're going to talk about Pearl's new reference series drums.
There was also the Master Works, which was a lot more customizable and a little bit more premium than the normal Masters. There was also just the regular Masters Premium, which was a maple shell. This is where it gets a little bit confusing for me, because upon researching this, the reason that mine is the Studio Birch is because apparently the Birch would give you a better EQ and better studio sound than the maple, but the maple was more expensive and I guess was geared more towards live playing. But what confuses me is, like, well, if it sounds good in the studio, why would it not sound good live? It just seems a little bit like marketing rubbish to me. The kit sounded great, why would it not sound great in a room full of people with other instruments? So then, what exactly did I buy off eBay? Well, of course there's the Pearl Masters Studio Birch kit, which is lovely and it sounds unbelievable. However, it is a little bit too early 2000s-y for my liking, and actually that fact did cause me more issues than I expected when I came to sell it. But I can't not start by talking about the Ludwig Black Beauty 14x6.5 hammered snare drum. Now these things, to give you a price, on Bax UK, £1,139 brand new. This one has the original Ludwig skins on it. It's definitely not been played much, and also it came with a really nice green case as well, a hard case. It also came with a Mapex MPX hammered snare drum, which is less desirable by about 90%, but still not a bad drum. There were then the full set of Paiste 2002 cymbals, 14-inch crunch hats, 16-inch crash, 18-inch ride, and 20-inch ride as well. Yamaha Hex Rack II, which are aluminium and very, very expensive. There's also a variety of Pearl hardware, stands, stool, all that kind of good stuff, and a full set of original Pearl cases. I saw the kit on eBay and it was already an absolute bargain at £1,128.68, but I just couldn't resist putting a little offer because, you know, anyone can pay retail, I've always said that. So I offered £100 less, and the seller actually took about 12 hours to get back to me, and I just thought, it'll be gone. Somebody will just hit buy it now, it'll be gone. But actually, it wasn't gone. The seller came back and we negotiated £50 off, which was great, just covered my expenses of going to get the thing. It was only about an hour from my house, so I paid £1,077.68 for the entire thing. Now, I'm fairly familiar with most Pearl kits. I've had a few of them myself. I own one currently, and I've definitely featured a few of them on this channel. Although I'd heard of the Masters Studio Birch, I didn't know exactly what it meant. I remember somebody telling me once that Gibson, with their Les Paul guitars, offer the standard and then they offer the studio model. The studio model was basically the same, except it didn't have all the fancy cosmetic bits on it, but it would still sound the same and it would still perform the same, but it was just designed that it wasn't the kind of showy off one. It was just designed as a kind of studio workhorse. And at the time, being that I hadn't done the research that I've now done for this video, I sort of thought that maybe Pearl had done a similar thing with the studio model of the Masters, but that didn't quite make sense to me because the kit that I've got is like a Sunburst finish, which I would say is quite a premium finish. And to add to my confusion, prices seem to be kind of all over the place. I mean, if I could get 700 quid for it, I'd be doing pretty well. That would be a good chunk of my money back, and that would give me lots of room for profit. It's a little bit weird because it's got big deep toms and it's in a finish that sort of ages it and dates it a little bit. The tom holders, they do look quite old now and they're not the best design because I know they can suffer a little bit with drooping. But I also was like a bit skeptical. Would I really get somebody to pay £700 for a sort of 20-year-old, slightly obscurely sized shell pack? And some people were asking way over £1,000. In fact, there's one the same as mine currently on eBay that's nearly £1,500. But it's been up there for ages, and I just can't see anybody giving somebody that much money for one. Now, if I'm honest, I thought it'd be a little bit cheeky. And being that the prices were so all over the place, I thought I'd try my luck, and I listed the shell pack for like £900. And the reason is that occasionally I'll do that and you'll find that there was one person out there who has been looking for one in that finish and those sizes for so long that they just go, yeah, I'll have it. I think that happened actually with the Mapex Saturn V that I had a few months ago. Normally what I'll do is I'll start fairly high on the kind of higher end of what I think is even possible, and then I'll start lowering the kits by maybe £10 every couple of days, £20 every couple of days, depending on how much of a rush I'm in to sell it. Now with that one, I sort of knew that it was probably not going to sell for anywhere near that, but I did think that maybe I'd get 700 quid for it because it's got the cases, it's in really good condition, and it had some EC2s which are also in very good condition. The things though that were going against it, I think, partly the finish, which I've mentioned. Sunburst, cool, but it's probably more cool 20 years ago. It's a hanging floor tom. I would have rather a 14x14 on legs, to be honest, and I'm sure some people probably converted them in the day. But the thing that was going against it more than anything was the depth of the toms. The 10 was, I think, a 10x9, maybe even a 10x10, but they were super deep. And what it meant is that you just can't position the drums where you want them on the bass drum. I can totally see why the previous owner had that hex rack, because it just meant that you could get them in. But if you look at the photos from eBay, you can see the way it was set up, and it just didn't look good to play in any way, you know? It looked sort of so unergonomic, and I think it just makes the kit far less desirable than if it were to have short stack toms, and I think that's why I had such trouble selling it. And although I started it at £900, of course I didn't leave it there for very long. I quickly brought it down, and I got to sort of the, you know, £750, £700 range, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get some interest now. And apart from a guy saying, well, I post it to Germany, I didn't get any other messages, really. I kept lowering it and lowering it and lowering it, and then eventually I got to like £500 and thought, I just don't understand, it's still hanging around. I was even having messages from people saying, I can't believe you haven't sold this yet. In the end, I sold the kit for £435, which I think, you know, is a bargain for someone. But I can kind of see why it only sold for that, despite the fact that I really thought I would get more for it. So you already know that I paid £1,077 and 68p for the entire lot, and that I got £435 for the Master Studio shell pack. But what did I get for everything else? Let's go through the list. So the Yamaha drum rack, I actually only got 160 quid for. I estimated I'd get about 220 for it because they are really expensive, brand new. The problem was that I didn't want to post it. It was enormous, and I just didn't want to ship it. So I had to rely on people in the fairly local area who were willing to collect. The Mapex MPX snare drum I decided to sell with the case. I estimated I'd get £80 for it. I actually got £90 for it, which is great. The Paiste 2002 crunch hats, I estimated I'd get £180 for. They actually took quite a while to sell, longer than anticipated, so I actually only got 160, but that was okay. The 16-inch crash, I estimated I'd get 140 for. I actually only got 120. However, I did sell that to a friend of mine, so gave him a little bit of a discount, a little bit of a cent on a discount. The 18-inch ride and the 20-inch ride actually went to a member of my Discord, so he paid 120 for the 18, which I think was a pretty good price there. You know who you are. And then the 20-inch ride also, I got 164, which was actually what I estimated. However, maybe I could have got a little bit more if I'd put it on eBay. There was also a Sonar single pedal. I estimated 20 quid for. I actually got 25 for it because I sold it as part of a package with a rolling kit, which I bought and didn't even make a full video about. Now, there were then two Heyman pedals, modern Heyman, not vintage Heyman. One was a single, one was a double. The double was missing a spring, so what I did was I sacrificed a spring from the single one to make the double actually work. I estimated I'd get 40 quid for the double. I actually got 45. I had estimated I'd get £20 for the single. I actually got nothing. It's still in the shed. Then there was a pearl hi-hat stand, quite a nice one. I estimated 40 quid. I got 40 quid. I should have put it up for a little bit more. There was a pearl drum stool. I put that on Marketplace. Got 30 quid for it. Exactly what I estimated. There was a generic snare drum stand. I estimated a tenner. I got a tenner. Pearl boom stand. I estimated 25 and got 20. And there was a 14-inch green hard case, the one that came with the Ludwig Black Beauty. I estimated 40 quid. I actually got £55 and 12p on eBay thanks to the buy protection fee. So then what exactly happened to that Ludwig snare drum? Well, I actually had to sell it twice. The first time on eBay, I sold it for £700 and I thought that was a fair price, being that it's, you know, a very high-end drum and there can't be that many people in the market for one. But then, just as I'd wrapped it up ready to post, I had a message from the seller saying that they'd bought it by accident. I don't know how you buy a £700 snare drum by accident. But anyway, I decided to tell my Discord members this, and somebody in the Discord decided that he really wanted to buy it, so I actually knocked another 20 quid off, and I got £679 for it, the way it worked out with eBay, and I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, I could have probably got a little bit more. It was in mint condition, but as I say, how many people want one? Anyway, to the summary. I thought, all in, I would get £2,545 for the lot. I actually only got £2,149 and 84p. Maybe I could have done a little bit better if I took my time a little bit more, but I'm more than happy with that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Remember to have a look at my website if you'd like to become a channel member. Remember to subscribe, leave a big thumbs up, and I'll see you again in a fortnight with some more drum content. I'll see you soon.